Howdy, folks. I am excited. This is a first for me on this channel. Also, I'm sick. I have been sick for about a week now, which is why I looked like a jack-o'-lantern 3 days after Halloween in my last video.
Thank you for watching.
Apparently my last video is somewhere behind me there. A friend of mine reminded me something is happening next week in the field of horror entertainment. And that reminder, coupled with the fact I'm pretty sure I took too much medication 45 minutes ago, made me feel compelled to jump on here to talk about what's happening next week. With zero preparation, I might add. I'm sure 2 to 3 minutes from now, it won't be very difficult to convince you that that is the truth. On April 5th, which is like less than a week away, It's March 31st right now. Director Arkasha Stevenson is bringing us the first Omen, which is supposed to be a prequel to 1976's The Omen, which, in my opinion, is one of the best horror movies ever made. If you've seen any of my other videos, you probably know how I feel about sequels and prequels and reboots and reimaginings. But if you're new here, to me, they are an underhanded way to make money off of somebody else's hard work and creativity. On a more personal note, they're also a way of taking more money from devoted fans like me and you in exchange for a product that is always inferior. If you haven't seen 1976's The Omen, or if it's been a really long time since you've seen it, I am hoping this little quick recap will catch you up. But I'm also doing it in hopes of maybe demonstrating how important and seminal that original movie actually was. I am totally willing to admit the fact this subject pisses me off personally, because I know, and you know too, even if you're not willing to admit it, next week's prequel is going to be a pile of crap that misses every single point that made the original movie amazing. Call me pessimistic if you want to, but when you've seen a scenario play out the exact same way hundreds of times a year for a bunch of years, it would actually be more messed up to apply some kind of positive mental attitude to the potential outcome of the next version of it. The original Omen is a classic horror film, but it's also a very important film. Not just a horror, but movie making in general, and I will elaborate on that point in a couple of minutes. But for now, I'm going to give you an improvised plot summary, as somebody that's seen the movie dozens of times. For the most part, you will be seeing the footage that I'm talking about, but I'm literally going to record this on the fly right now into this microphone in real time from memory without any notes. And I'm going to do it all in under 3 minutes. Go! The movie starts with the birth of Damien Thorne. He's meant to be the son of Robert and Catherine Thorne, played by the legendary actors Gregory Peck and Lee Remick. Unbeknownst to Catherine, though, their actual biological child dies at birth, and Robert is desperate to spare his wife, Catherine, the grief, so he goes along with a priest's suggestion to adopt another child whose mother didn't survive childbirth. Damien gets older, as kids often do, and things start happening all around him. His nanny celebrates his birthday by hanging herself in front of everybody at his party, after dedicating the act to him directly, of course. And then another priest warns Robert of Damien's true nature, suggesting he's actually the Antichrist reborn. Now, Robert's no typical father. He's a U.S. ambassador with a lot of wealth and influence and a very public life. And after initially writing off the priest's claims, he ends up investigating further, only to find a series of weird, unusual deaths surrounding the child. And then Robert meets a photographer named Keith, played by another legend, actor David Warner, who terrified me as a kid playing evil in Terry Gilliam's Time Bandits.
What did you say?
Keith the photographer shows Robert photos of Damien that contain weird shapes and shadows and possible biblical prophecies. So Robert and Keith head off to Italy to find out whatever they can about Damien's birth. And when they get there, they find out Damien's biological mother was actually a jackal, which, despite looking a lot like a fox, is actually a member of the dog family. And I know that because you have the time to look up stupid things on the internet when you did not take the wife and children route in life. Meanwhile, Catherine gets pregnant again. Robert does whatever he can to walk the line between keeping up public appearances and protecting his family from the ever-growing possibility his son Damien might actually be dangerous. But unfortunately, in spite of his best efforts, tragedy strikes anyways, and Damien's messed up behavior towards Catherine eventually causes a miscarriage, and ultimately the death of Catherine herself. And then the combination of everything happening in real life and inside Robert's mind comes to a head, and in a desperate attempt to stop Damien, Robert traps him in a church and raises a sacred weapon up over his head to plunge into his son, but the police shoot and kill him at the last second, and the movie ends with a very famous shot of Damien turning around and breaking the fourth wall, grinning at all of us in the audience to kind of let us know he's just getting started. There you have it, folks. That is most of the major plot points from 1976's The Omen. In my opinion, just as a horror fan, modern horror directors shouldn't be touching these classic movies. Unfortunately, a lot of them have to, or they won't get funded otherwise. The original Omen, like The Exorcist or Jaws or so many other movies from that era, deserve respect. I don't think any of them should have had sequels, never mind 5 follow-up installments. Speaking specifically about The Omen, next week's prequel, The First Omen, has attached itself to the original 1976 film in hopes of piggybacking off of the movie's reputation. But that is exactly what is going to prove the movie's downfall, because modern directors cannot replicate any of the elements that made the original movie what it is. What I mean specifically, from the minute the movie starts, it uses its score and pacing and imagery to create a super tense atmosphere that never lets up. You'll notice I didn't say anything about jump scares or CGI. Also, this story taps into our primal fears, if you will, by incorporating supernatural elements in a way neither of its 2 major predecessors did. I'm a huge fan of Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist, but The Omen achieves something that neither of those did, and I would argue very few have since. When you watch the final shot of Damien, we still don't know. Robert could have been wrong the entire time, and that's the essence of the deceptive qualities of the Christian devil. I mean, for all we know, Damien might have been right as rain with a daily dose of Ritalin. And with that important point in mind, that means The Omen also nailed the psychological aspects of horror. If they'd have left The Omen where it was and not turned it into a series, you could easily have suggested Robert was just paranoid and guilt-ridden, which is as plausible an explanation as the supernatural one. And when you think about it in those terms, when was the last time a film left you 50-50 like that in terms of what the hell just transpired? The original Omen's also full of iconic imagery. From the famous silhouette of Damien and that perfect closing shot to all of the death scenes in between that I'm not able to show you right now. Nowadays you're lucky if you get a single scene out of a horror movie that makes you and your friends talk about it for weeks and weeks afterwards. But The Omen leaves several disturbing images in your head, and they stay there. I literally forget everything James Wan and Lee Winnell have done by the time I start my car in the parking lot. And finally, something modern horror seems to have given up on for the most part: acting. Every major member of this cast contributed directly to grounding the supernatural elements of the movie in real life. And that's the most important thing in these kinds of movies. When you're able to successfully convey some kind of realism, the horrific aspects of the story become more potent and unsettling because you can imagine them happening to you that night when you get home. And if your casting department's only priority is getting a good-looking cast, you are never going to give people nightmares. It's not my job on this channel to tell anybody what to watch or what not to watch, and I am not suggesting you should not watch The First Omen next week. I think I am trying to convey specifically what frustrates me about these modern reboots and sequels. They don't feel like art to me. They feel like investment opportunities, and that's shitty. Anyways, folks, if you're still here, that's all I've got. It's time for me to get back to my YouTube work before I have to get up for real work in the morning. Over the next few weeks, I'll be posting a series of list videos, starting with my top 10 slasher movies of all time. Until next time, folks. It's me, Johnny, from that video you just watched, although I'm sure you know who I am, right? you should subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost anything, it's easy to do, and it makes creative people like myself who thrive on compliments feel all warm and fuzzy. And if you like that last video, click on this next video because it's just as amazing. Click on it.